Well, hello everyone. Welcome in. My name's Rick Farron. I'm here in Massachusetts at the Six Screens Control Panel. And on Sunday we do programming as well. And I want you to stay with us. Now, on Sunday, what we do is we get into theology, we get into the scriptures, we get into talking about God. That's not a bad thing. But a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, when they're leaving the organization, they leave God behind. So for those that still want to learn about God, this is the place to come in. Now, we have a program. It's called Jehovah's Witnesses Share Their Christian Testimony. And, it's wonderful. They come on, they tell us about their trek in the Watchtower, and then they also share how they became Christian. So we do have a man coming in from West Virginia today. And of course, we have the host of the program. Her name is Anne Marie, and she's coming in from Northern California. Hello, Anne Marie.
Hello, my brother Rick. Happy Six Screen Sunday. How are you?
Well, like I say, I'm doing good today. I always like Sunday. There's like a spirit in the air. It's always good to talk about. I have to tell you, Anne Marie, and I was talking to Susan this morning about this as well. There's only two roads you can get on, right? There's only two roads. And, when you come to the fork in the road and there are signs, one sign says, this road leads to goodness and happiness and purity. And the other road says leads to evil and death and darkness. What road are you going to get on? So, what is so bad about getting on the right road to life? Now is one's time to do that if they haven't. So we do have a good audience coming in today. I'm going to cut myself loose and I'm going to let you go along with Kurt. So go ahead, take it away, Anne Marie.
Thank you, my brother. I want to welcome everyone to another Six Screen Sunday. Today is June 4th, 2023. I almost said May. And I still marvel that we are in the year 2023. This is the show. Jehovah's Witnesses share their Christian testimony. Sometimes we call it Jehovah's Witnesses share their spiritual journey, because all of our journeys are different. And we have a wonderful guest. My brother Kurt, are you there?
Hi, Anne Marie. I'm here. Are you hearing me good? Can you hear me?
Yes, Kurt. You do sound a little faint, but it could be my phone. Who knows? But okay. I would love to hear you a little louder. I'm so glad you're there.
Yeah, I just turned my volume control up. I got a volume control on the side of this phone. I'm on the headset. And, of course, I can't hear myself.
Right.
What you're hearing. Yeah. I could speak up a little bit. I just want to make sure that you hear me good enough. I know my hearing on my end is not 100%, but sometimes on Six Screens I have trouble hearing certain people.
I understand.
There's something is going on with your phone, Kurt. There's an oddball sound coming out of it. I'm not sure what it is.
I thought it was a wheel.
Do you have a headset? Kurt, do you have a headset on?
Yeah.
I got the headset on, but
take the headset off. You don't need the headset. It's causing this problem.
It sounds like something's booting.
Okay, hey Rick, listen. Let me go to *6 mute. Let me mute my phone and see if it stops.
Kurt is so adorable.
Okay, it stopped. It stopped, Kurt. So it's coming from your phone. It's coming from your headphones. You don't need headphones. Just talk into your phone.
I'm going to do that right now. Give me just a minute. I'm going to have to talk over the speakerphone on because my cordless is not working. Just hang on a minute.
That is an odd sound.
Okay,
it does. It sounds like the phone is booting. It's still going.
Okay, I'm on
Now, this didn't happen last time.
No, I'm on the speakerphone. Can you hear me?
We hear you. As long as we don't hear that sound seems to still be there, but
I don't know. I was on this phone last night on 6 screens and didn't have any problem. I don't know what's going on. I hear that happen, but the house is very quiet. You can hear a pin drop here. There's nothing, no background noise or anything. So I don't know. Okay.
Well, I guess I don't know if we can live with it or not, but it is kind of annoying. But I don't want to discourage you, my brother, from talking.
Well, I would have to get off the call and take my phone line loose and put it on my cordless. I'm down to one cordless, but the thing about it is that cordless phone don't last for about 45 minutes or an hour, and then I'm out. I'm gone. I mean, I'm done. So this landline phone, I could talk. I could be on here 24/7.
Well, it's okay. We'll get used to it. It seems like when you stop talking is when we hear it. Anyway, have you given any thought, Kurt, to what we discussed last time, 2 weeks ago, on the first part of your interview with Kurt?
Oh, yeah. I sat down yesterday and made some notes, and then I finished them, I don't know, about an hour ago. I always do everything at the very last minute, but there's 7 main points about me and my family, me and the family, regarding the Watchtower. There's 7. And just joking around here, that's the spiritual number 7. So I found that a little comical. But yeah, I've got some notes here. Just like looking at chicken scratch, but I wrote the notes down so I wouldn't try to remember everything. So
okay, no worries. As long as we're sequential and have some kind of order, and nobody comes on the phone telling you to pray for another wife. That kind of bothered me last time. But I'm just happy.
I think Mark, he's a good guy.
That's okay. I know he well, but sorry. Go ahead here.
I didn't take any offense at that. But anyway, I'll get started here. You try to keep me out of the weeds. I'm going to look at my notes and try to decipher them as I go. But I live in Mingo County, West Virginia. It borders Kentucky, Pike County. The Tug River separates the 2 states here. And I was born in April of '56. I'm 67. And the first, the origins of the Watchtower, so to speak, with the family, my dad and grandmother Hatfield told me the same story. Sometime in 1940, up this hollow where I live, it's way up out, kind of isolated. I'm living in a house right now that Dad built in '54, and in 1940. Up this hollow, there was not a road. There was just I don't remember that because when I was born, there had been a road built up here, but it was like a cow path. They call it a cow path in 1940. And I got the same story, like I said, from my dad and grandmother. There was a man that walked up the hollow here. He was from up at Mate 1. It's about 10 or 15 miles away. And he was a Jehovah's Witness. I still remember him as a little kid. Walter Clayton, he worked for the railroad as a clerk. I don't know exactly what that means, but that was his job. And he walked up the hall, and Grandpa met him there where the driveway is today, and they talked for a while, and I don't know what kind of literature he left with Grandpa. I'm assuming his Watchtower. I don't know exactly, but Grandma and my dad told me that he did eventually get a lot of literature. I'm thinking in the 40s he would get some of I don't know this, but we got some of Rutherford's books. I think Rutherford wrote maybe 13 books. I don't have any of them. If he did get those books, him and my grandmother, I have no idea what happened to them. I've never seen one. The oldest book I got's a 58. I think it's a 58. The Your Will Be Done book is from my grandmother. But Dad and Grandma told me that at times he'd be sitting on the swing in the evenings before dark and swinging and reading one of those books or the Watchtower. He'd read it out loud, and he would say, "This is the truth." Occasionally he'd say, "This is the truth." Hearing my grandma went to some kind of Pentecostal or Church of God or something. I don't really know exactly. Grandpa himself was never much of a Christian. He was just too, I don't know, mean, and I don't know. He was a really rough guy. Most of those old timers in this part of the country, not all of them, but most of them were pretty crude, and he was pretty hard on my grandmother. He wasn't a wife beater. I've never heard any tales about him ever getting, but he was hard on her, and was a ladies' man, and had a real problem with that. But so that's how the Watchtower got started here in the family. There were 10 of those kids. My dad was one of the 10, of course, and him and a sister, one of his sisters, came into the organization and died both in the organization. But the rest of them, they went all over the country. Matter of fact, one of them went to San Francisco. The oldest of the 10 went to San Francisco. I never went out there and visited her, but she went out there and married some guy that was, he remodeled homes, these fancy homes, and that was his business. So he made a pretty good living at it. The family, my dad's family, they were split on the Watchtower. I think the other 8 of the kids, they did not like the Watchtower at all. And so, of course, they scattered around. They wasn't bumping into each other. But so anyway, like I said, I was born in 56. There was a congregation. The Kingdom Hall actually was at a place in Mingo County called Lenore. It was a community, coal mining and community. It was kind of scattered out, but there at Lenore, my granddad and dad and others, the people in the Kingdom Hall, built a Kingdom Hall there. Somewhere in the 50s. I don't remember the building of it. Probably built before I was born. There was an old brother there. I can still see him today, Brother White. He was real old when I was just a little kid. He was the elder, or the presiding, the overseer. And I remember him a little. I can still see him in my mind's eye. He died off. When he died off, there was a guy from up in Hillsboro High, Dan Woodrum. Him and his wife and 2 kids moved in here where the need was great. Dan was a typical Jehovah's Witness elder, typical in different ways. He was a take the bull by the horns type of guy. He's a little fella. Done a lot of talking. He worked for the telephone company. When he moved down here, he was working for he went to work for Verizon. I remember that. He had been working for some telephone company up in Ohio. He was a repairman. And so Brother White died, and there was nobody in the congregation qualified, or I guess, that took over. So he came in. And he was pretty, he's a good guy, but he was pretty abrasive in a way. I didn't fall in love with him. Dad didn't care for him very much, but he did keep the congregation going, I guess. The first thing, I missed a part here. I got 7 things that made me wonder about the Watchtower. The first one, I stepped over here. At the Lenore congregation, we didn't have a congregation at Williamson yet, but that Lenore congregation was, there was a guy came in, he was about 25 years old, and he was single, and he came in to work where the need was great. And the congregation had a get together, a picnic down at Laurel Lake, and it was on a Saturday. But I wasn't there. I don't know why. I don't know, probably working in the garden or something. Dad had a bunch of gardens, and that weekend was a big. But anyway, this David, I can't remember his last name. He went swimming in Laurel Lake, and he drowned. And like I say, I wasn't there. Of course, it was a big deal at the congregation. I don't remember where he was from. I can just imagine, or try to imagine, his mother and dad getting a call. Well, I do remember that made me stop and think. I wasn't so stupid that I didn't realize people died, but I thought, well, this guy was a pioneer and doing the Lord's work, so to speak, and maybe he had a guardian angel, but it turned out he didn't. So that bothered me. I still think about it every blue moon that'll come into my mind. I think that was the first thing. And I think even at that time, I had some kind of idea that if you were a Jehovah's Witness, you were special. You were maybe even protected. Protected to some degree until, maybe you died of natural causes or something, maybe. But that didn't prove true in that case. But the next thing that happened, along about 68, Woodrum had come in, and Brother White had died, and it wasn't long, not long at all, that Dan, him and the Watchtower, or him on his own, I guess the Watchtower was involved, Circuit Overseer, District Overseer, I don't know. They saved the Kingdom Hall.
Can you take a break?
Yeah, sure.
Kurt, I adore you. I do. But I need to see, maybe it's me. I'm lost. I don't know where you're at. I am lost in the weeds. I don't know who you're talking about, when you're talking about. I keep looking for, and maybe it's me. I don't have the best brain. You got into the organization because of your grandmother or your mother who was sitting on the swing reading the Thy Will Be Done or whatever that book was?
Yeah, my grandmother and grandfather came in, in 1940. Yeah.
Okay, good. So in 1940, they came in. Did you get raised up in the organization, or did your mother and father follow along?
Yeah, I should have made that clear, but I didn't. Yeah, Mom and Dad followed along in the organization. Dad and Mom were married in '52, and she was in the Church of Christ. Her whole family was in the Church of Christ over on the Kentucky side, and she came in to the organization. In '52, my mom and Dad. Yeah. But of course, Dad before that, he didn't really come into the organization. He went and joined the Army, I think in '46, and he was in the Army and stationed in Germany after the war for 2 years. But he never was at any point really in the organization very strong. He did end up getting baptized years later. But yeah. So as a young kid, or as a baby, I was born in to the organization, and like I mentioned there, thing that really kind of was confusing was this David guy that got drowned down at the get-together that they were having. I thought that was very, they got everybody's attention, I'm sure. But I think that was the first thing.
Okay, you were born in, your mom came in later after your grandparents were already in it. You were born in, and then you said the first thing that you remember being confused about was something that you were sure other people. What was it that you were confused about, please? I'm sorry if I'm a little slow, Kurt.
Oh, no, that's okay. I think the first thing that I was confused about was this pioneer that came into the congregation. Like I mentioned, he was about 25 years old. He was single, and he ended up drowning there at a get-together that the congregation had. And I thought, that really, like I said, was a shock, to anybody, especially a young mind, because I just couldn't really compute that completely. I thought maybe that being a Jehovah's Witness, that you would be protected, guarded in some way.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Thank you.
And you got old and maybe died of old age or something. Other than that, you would be protected. But that wasn't the case. So I think that was the first thing in my walk with the Watchtower that kind of got my attention. It was nobody's fault. It's just something that happened.
Okay, we got that. So what's the next thing? What else confused you and bothered you?
The next thing, I think, was about '68 when they sold the Kingdom Hall that I was part of, and Dan Woodrum and whoever else decided to sell the Kingdom Hall. Well, people sell things all the time, but they sold it to the Church of God, and
oh my goodness.
and that is a fact, and it's also a fact that someone told me I don't know, they had the Church of God had a meeting. There was a house on the property that Brother White used to live in, and so the preacher moved into the house, and someone told me they had meetings there like the next weekend. So that got my attention because even though I was young and everything, the Watchtower was so distant from the churches, and it just had nothing to do with the churches. And I thought, well, selling a Kingdom Hall to the Church of God, that just don't make any sense to me. But
Kurt, I have a question. Kurt, I'm sorry. I'm trying to, now that I feel like I have a footing. The first thing that really bothered you and shocked you was the 25-year-old pioneer drowning at a Jehovah's Witness get together, when we all were taught, Jehovah's Witnesses have God's protection and the angels and all that. The second thing was the Kingdom Hall that you attended, I'm assuming as a child, and for years was sold to a church, which we're told are all from the devil. Now, are you saying that after the Kingdom Hall was sold to a church and a preacher of that church moved into a house that was on the same property, is that so far correct?
That's a perfect recollection. Yeah, that's what I
Thank you.
So I remembered that. Yeah, so there was two things there: the drowning of the guy, and then the selling of the Kingdom Hall to the Church of God. So these are two things that didn't devastate me or anything, but it did. How your mind works. You think about things. Try not to be too negative, but the real world, what really happens.
Yes, Kurt, I have to ask a second question. My second question was, I don't want to misunderstand you, Kurt, because you're just so wonderful. Did you say after the Kingdom Hall was sold to the Church of God and the preacher, whoever, moved on to the property in that little house, did you say that the congregation now was continuing to meet in the same Kingdom Hall now that it was sold to this church? I'm trying to understand what you said.
Yeah, well, what happened when the Kingdom Hall was sold, Dan Woodrum the elder, had made arrangements. Of course, I wasn't aware of how this operated, but he made arrangements to rent in Williamson, in the city, not out in the country at Lenore, but to rent a one-room, small, concrete floors, painted red. I can still see it today, for the Kingdom Hall. So the people moved to that rented Kingdom Hall. This would have been about 68.
Okay.
And
so the witnesses did not meet in the hall. The witness, are you saying that's a no? The witnesses did not continue to meet in that Kingdom Hall that had been sold. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we did not meet in that Kingdom Hall. Yeah.
So now they have to meet in this little room.
Yeah, it was actually one room. It's kind of hard to believe now when I think back. It wasn't. I don't know what it measured. It might have been 15 foot across and maybe, I don't know, 30.
And how far did the witnesses have to? I'm fascinated about the dynamics of the measurements of the room. I'm wondering. You said that it was in the city. Did you, Kurt? How far did the witnesses now?
Yeah,
how far did they have to travel now?
Yeah, the county seat is in Williamson. It's just a small town, but it's the city for Mingo County. I mean, that's where all the action is. The rest of the people live out in the country, and but in Williamson, he rented this one room, and I remember it very good because we were there for 2 years or more at that room, and the people like me, young man, we never sat down. We had to stand up. We had the folding chairs, and the older people and or what have you, would sit down, and he had a podium. That Dan Woodrum, and then we had of course, the ministry school and a service meeting and Sunday, the whole deal at that time in that little rented room. And but plans were in motion to build a Kingdom Hall, and it was done and completed sometime in 1970. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, all of us worked on it. I couldn't do much of anything. I could work, but I couldn't do much of the technical work. But Dad and a lot of the brothers and sisters could do a lot more than I could. But everybody pitched in. and we got that done, and it was a nice place.
Wait, Kurt. Okay, I'm just asking two questions. Please forgive me. How far did this poor congregation have to travel to meet in this little room, which they had to meet in and hold all their meetings in ministry school for almost 2 years or 2 years? How far did they have to travel? A mile, 10 miles, 20 miles? Do you remember? Because I thought you said it was in the city.
Well, it was in the city. Some of those people lived out in different parts of the county. You know, it might take them, I don't know, the farthest on these old roads. These have got new roads in here now, but these old roads, country roads, it might take some people, a half hour or 45 minutes to get to the meeting.
So they had to do this for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So where did they build the new Kingdom Hall that you worked on?
Well, the new Kingdom Hall was not built in Williamson. It was built about 5 miles out of Williamson, at a place that we had moved to. Our family in 1960 moved off of Elk Creek here and moved to a coal mining community called Chatteroy. There was four working mines, coal mines in that little area there, scattered around on Buffalo Creek. Chatteroy was the community, and so the Kingdom Hall was built there. About, 150 yards or so, maybe, away from our house, up that holler. So that's where the Kingdom Hall was until they sold it years later. They sold it about 6 years ago. They sold it. I think the next thing that happened around about that time, I was baptized at 14. I think I was 14. Born in 56. That would have made 14 years old in 1970 at the Charleston District Assembly at 14. And in that year, I got injured. It's a story to it. I won't get into that. And I ruptured my spleen. And what time I got to the hospital, I didn't know one end from what end was up. But Dad took me to the hospital, and it was emergency surgery, and he gave me a blood transfusion. And I remember distinctly, laying on that cart that they took me in got me out of a truck. They brought out the orderlies brought out a cart because I didn't have the strength to walk, I reckon. And I remember on that cart mumbling around that I don't want a blood transfusion. I don't know, but I remember that clearly. And but I was out of it pretty much. But I never passed out until I got into the anesthesia to the surgery. But anyway, I had a blood transfusion. Well, that was another thing, because my dad had been baptized. I had been baptized. The Watchtower, Woodrum, he was the man. There was another guy who had moved in by that time, an old fellow, him and his wife, John Conrad. He was an elder. I forgot where he's from. And neither one of them, to my knowledge, said a word about the blood transfusion to my dad or mom. If they did, they never told me about it. I was in the hospital 4 days, and glad to be alive. But that stuff struck me. Yeah.
Did you say you were 14 when this happened to you?
Yeah, I was. That was in 1970. I would have been 14 and a half or 14 something.
Oh my goodness! I'm so glad you're alive.
Yeah. But anyway, the point to the blood transfusion, I can't remember exactly my thinking on it, but it really, really was a big deal. I didn't feel like I was condemned necessarily, but I didn't feel good about it. I was glad to be alive, but I just I didn't have a good feeling about it, and that has to do with the Watchtower teaching, of course. And so I think that was the third thing in my life story was that blood transfusion. It really had, I don't want to embellish it, but it was really a big deal. It was a big deal to me at the time. Glad I was alive. At the same time, kind of, I felt like that, I'd broken some command from God or something. Pretty confused, actually. Later on, I really got into the blood transfusion research, and everybody does. Not everybody, but has looked into it. Ex-witnesses in particular. But anyway, to go on with I wanted to bring up the assemblies. At the assemblies, we would have the circuit assembly. This went on for years in Williamson and Mingo County, and then the district assemblies would be in Charleston at the Civic Center. And in the circuit, you know how it works in the circuit back in the old days. So a lot of people knew each other.
Right.
You know how that is, and that's the way it was here. I didn't know everybody, but the families knew other families, and at the Charleston District Assembly, I don't know, there might be 10 or 12,000 people there. It was pretty big at one time. I always worked like a lot of other people did. I didn't like sitting all the time. I was young, had a lot of energy, and I worked in janitorial all the time. And you know how that works. You get your work done, and sometimes you miss some of the assembly you're working around, and then you come and sit down, and the meeting is going on. So I didn't get much out of the assemblies other than association with people. I got along with people really good. I really liked the assemblies. Now, I wasn't at outdoors at 100 degrees. I never experienced that. My grandmother went to that 58. She and some people in 58 went to a Yankee Stadium. I think she wasn't much of a traveler, but I think she went to St. Louis one time to an international assembly. I don't remember if that was what year it was, 64. So I don't remember. But but anyway, the assemblies, I like the assemblies. Now, as a young man, I never was any pervert, but I paid attention to the girls. I tell you, with Jehovah's Witnesses, one thing I think is true. There are a lot of wonderful women that are have been in the organization and are there and have been there, and very beautiful women inside and out. And I do want to say, but I say this truthfully, when it comes to, even when I was younger, I don't ever remember looking at a female and thinking to myself, that woman over there is not attractive, but now that one is. I'll be honest with you, I don't ever remember that. Now we're all human beings, and but I never. I could say that I was interested in talking, communicating when I talked to a woman or a girl when I was a kid, when I was 14-year-old or 16-year-old. And it was just as important how they communicated, what was their nature, what was their attitude, as it was, and what they looked like. But getting back to the assemblies,
I enjoyed the assemblies, so I really can't complain about the assemblies. Now, the assemblies can be taxing, some of the speakers would, rock you to sleep. It's like watching grass grow. But I like the assembly. I met a girl at the Charleston Civic Center at District Convention. She was Mexican American, Felipa Zamora, and the Zamora family. My dad liked her dad. Somehow they met, talking there between sessions, and one thing led to another, and the families got to like each other and that kind of thing. But they had a daughter, and she was beautiful, and she, I at that time was about 17. And I can't remember if she was 16 or 17. I can't remember, but we dated a little bit, talked on the phone occasionally. It wasn't nothing real serious.
He doesn't regret making those, but he fucking says, dude, I fucked up making it.
Well, I couldn't.
Okay, Kurt, please forgive me for jumping in. Time-wise, we have about 8 minutes left, and you're still talking about when you're 14 or 15. And
I'm in bad shape here. That's what I do. I get all these long. But anyway, let me jump way forward. Let's go past the 70s. There's a lot of what I have to leave out here. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to get up to the end of it. To the end in the early '80s, with I had heard. I don't remember how about Raymond Friends. I don't remember, but I remember hearing about him. It was a real shock to me. I had seen his picture a time or two or three. I knew what he looked like at a watchtower and governing body. That was a big shock. And then sometime later on, the 80s or 86 or 87, I got the Crisis in Conscience. I read it. It was another a pretty good blow. Last thing that I will say is with my sisters. I've got two sisters that they're married. They're elders. Her husbands are elders, and we haven't talked for many years. And they shun me, and I don't lose any sleep over it. I don't necessarily like it, but it's really comical. My younger brother, there's four of us kids, and he has always been an atheist. He was taken to the Kingdom Hall. He never liked it much. He quit when he was about 16. That was Dad's pride and joy, his younger son. But he's pretty wild, and my sisters had a good relationship with him, a very good relationship. But he's an atheist. But they won't talk to me because I'm disassociated. I've never been disfellowshipped, but just disassociated. They're very disappointed, I guess, and they don't want to be infected. But that would pretty much be the end of my story. The nature of it, the nature of myself, the nature of other people, et cetera, et cetera. But like you say, we're just about out of time. Go ahead. You might want to open it up to anybody. I'm sorry about that. Let me ask
you, okay. Take a breath. Kurt, you are just so darn adorable. You really are. I wish I could listen to you all day. Let me ask. You are wonderful, Kurt. I sure have missed you and enjoyed you. Please, may I ask a couple clarifying questions, because I'm a kind of a nuts and bolts in sequence kind of person. So we got how you attended the Kingdom Hall. It got sold to a church, how you guys had to meet in a room for almost 2 years. You helped build a beautiful Kingdom Hall, recently got sold. You worked at the assemblies because it's hard for you to sit still. You almost died. If you hadn't had the blood transfusion, you would have died at age 14. So glad you didn't. Now, I want to know, was hearing about Raymond Friends, because I think he got kicked out of Bethel in 1980. It was going around because the Watchtower didn't want the rank and file to know that he was not an evil man. They had it going around that Jehovah was cleaning house and that the devil can get anywhere, even in Bethel. Was Raymond Friends, the whole situation, part of what helped get you out of the Watchtower? Yes or no? I don't want a story because we don't. So did you?
You got a photographic memory. But to answer your question, the answer is yes. Because I was still active in his early 80s. I was still active in the preaching work and at the Kingdom Hall. Yes. So Raymond Friends' story, what happened with him was, I did not think that it was possible, even possible, for somebody that is a governing body member to ever leave the organization. I didn't think it was possible. So
right.
Yes.
Well, now I have to ask you, Kurt. Obviously, you have a nice brain and you thought about it. I didn't. I was one of the dumb ones. How did you find out the truth about what happened to Raymond Friends? Did you get his book, or what happened that got you out?
You know, I was thinking about that when I was making my notes. I do remember hearing about Raymond Friends before I got his Crisis in Conscience book, because that happened later. That was I don't remember, 85 or 87, when I went. There was a McCoy guy. He had a business rebuilding coal trucks. He had a big business, and I met him at a bluegrass festival. We got to talking, and he lived up Mate One, up there where the feud took place, and he was in that McCoy family. And so we become friends, and we got to talking somehow about Jehovah's Witnesses. I probably brought it up, and he said, I got something for you to read. We was at that bluegrass festival. He said, well, come up to my house, and I did, and he gave me that book.
I love Kurt. Kurt? Since it was not reading the Crisis of Conscience that got you out of Watchtower, you heard about the situation, you knew in your heart, you felt in your heart, it just can't be that a governing body member could turn out to be evil. What actually caused you to leave Watchtower? Because you just now explained that it was later, after you left the Watchtower, that you got Crisis of Conscience, Raymond Friends' book. What actually got you to leave the Watchtower, Kurt? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question. I didn't leave the Watchtower completely until somewhere up in the 90s, the early 90s, I think. But in the early 80s, the Raymond Friends situation, and later on the reading the book, but also what was at work was me making a living. I was doing okay at the time in the early 80s, making a living. We had 4 children. By the year 87, the girl, the last, we had 3 boys and then the girl in 87. So it was really, a hard road to hoe. So I had to put a lot of time in working, and of course, I don't have to tell you, if you're in the Watchtower, like you need to be in the Watchtower, it's going to take up a considerable amount of time. So you know how it works. So the combination of me having to make a living and the Raymond Friends situation and some other things that happened through the years that I didn't get around to talking about, all of it combined, I became inactive in the early 90s, and I never recovered from it. And I'm at the point now where I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied with studying my Bible on my own. I like to talk to my sisters. I like to talk to witnesses. I like to talk to ex-witnesses. What I'd like to do, but it's not possible.
What a shame.
With the witnesses, it's not possible to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's ask Rick how much time we can steal from him if he's willing. He's always so generous. One moment, Kurt, please. My
Okay.
brother Rick, how are we doing on time?
Well, we're just about there, but we can run another say another 10 minutes, okay?
Oh, Rick, you're so awesome. Thank you, my brother. Okay,
Yeah,
Kurt.
thank you, Rick.
Kurt, what do you want to do? Do you have 1 or 2 points that you want to make sure you get out before we ask if someone has a question?
Well, I could bring up on my list here some other things, but I'm talked on for the last hour. If somebody out there, maybe there's nobody out there who wants to talk, but if anybody else wants to talk, go for it. Yeah.
I just want to make sure if there's at least one thing that you want to leave the audience with, I hope you share it, because it sounds like you were from tiny, even before you were born, your grandmother was indoctrinated into this, I can't even call it a real religion, and you were faithful, and then you got shocked by seeing a 25-year-old pioneer die, thinking that, wait a minute, why didn't he have Jehovah's protection? He's so dedicated. And then 14 years old, you didn't bleed to death like you would have if you hadn't had the blood transfusion. Sounds like you stayed faithful even though you were shocked at the selling of the Kingdom Hall. You helped build a new Kingdom Hall. You've been through a lot in your life, Kurt. And I just want to know, is there one thing that comes to your mind that you would like the world to know? Because this is going to be in the archives.
Well, I tell you, there's some other things on my list here we don't have time to get into, but one thing I do want that I didn't get around to talking about that really stuck with me, and there's a long story to it, but I'll just try to make it in a few short sentences. There was an appointment of an elder, from a ministerial servant to an elder. Of course, that material, I understand, goes to the headquarters. The circuit OC is involved, and it goes to the headquarters, and they vote some way on approving an elder. So this guy was approved an elder. At the same time, prior to that, it was brought out, long story, it was brought out that he had propositioned one of the sisters. She was married to an elder, and it all busted out. And so he was appointed an elder for about 15 minutes. And I'm exaggerating. For about 15 minutes, he was appointed elder by the Holy Spirit. And then he was no longer an elder. So the point is that this appointment of elders in the Watchtower teaching it's done with the Holy Spirit. So that told me a lot. And I questioned them about it. Never got a good answer. It didn't. The world kept right on turning, but in the Jehovah's Witness world, in our little congregation, that really stuck with me. This must be a human operation where a man or a group of men is giving the thumbs up on this guy becoming an elder, because the Holy Spirit don't make those kind of mistakes. So anyway, I thought I'd leave you that. There's a lot to the story, but I thought I'd mention that. Go ahead, yeah.
You know what, Kurt, that's an important point. Dick Borghi brings that out, that very point, a lot, that the evidence clearly shows that Jehovah God's Spirit, or we'll just say Holy Spirit, is not behind the appointment of ministerial servants or elders or whatever. It is pure man, and the things that they do behind closed doors. Thank you so much, Kurt. Is there anyone that would like to say something to Kurt, a question? We're very limited on time. Go ahead, *6.
Well, Kurt.
Is there anybody? Hi, Rick.
Yeah, what I'll do is I just want to say hello to Kurt, and thank you, Kurt, for coming on. You've been coming on to the 6 Screens for almost since our very start, and we really appreciate that. And, the other thing I find with you, you certainly are a country man, and you live out there in West Virginia. I'm sure it's pretty rural. Now, how does the organization treat that rural area of West Virginia? I know, in fact, how far are you from Pike, Kentucky?
Yeah, Pike County. Thank you, Rick. Pike County, Kentucky is across the river from Mingo County. My wife is over there in Pike County, Kentucky right now. We're still married, but anyway, just across the river. I got to bring this up. It's one of the things I had marked down. There were three girls, three freshly sisters, the Sebastianowicz girls, that came down from Massachusetts. I don't remember, but the family got real close to them, the whole congregation. There were 3 or 4 summers. I think it started in 74 when we got married, and I think it was the first year down here, and they were amazing. They were stayed during the summer about 4 months, and they'd go back home, and they would send the family and other people in the cards from Massachusetts. But the end of the story is this. With those girls, we went to a Charleston District Convention. We had been married, this was probably about 78, something like that. And I hadn't seen the Sebastianowicz girls for a while. And I didn't know what happened to them. Of course, they went back to Massachusetts, like I said. But at the Charleston District Convention, there were some people standing outside protesting. And Lord have mercy. My wife and I was walking in there out there in the parking lot area, and there were the Sebastianowicz girls. I like to fainted. And we walked over, my wife and I walked over to talk to them and gave them a hug, and they were holding signs. And I said, girls, what in the world is up with this? And they did not want to give me the details. They had been, I assumed the disfellowship, and I never found out. I could not rest for a while, asking everybody I knew what happened to Sebastianowicz girls. And nobody in Pikeville or Logan or Williamson knew what happened to them. If they did, they wasn't talking about it. And oh my goodness, I'm still not over that. That really stuck with me. How in this world could those girls, they were pioneering, I guess they were spiritual pioneering, have been raised in the truth.
Yeah, well, hold on here. Don't we don't have to know that much. I mean, I'm just trying to ask a question here. That's all. Thank you though for giving me the whole story. But the reason why I ask about Pike County is my daughters used to go down there. In fact, there's always a group from Massachusetts that went down to Pike County and spend a good part of the summer. And I had that would have been too early for my daughters, but in the I would say in the 80s, my daughters went down there and spent a few weeks. There was a whole group of witnesses here from Massachusetts, and the reason why I'm bringing this all up, it was considered unworked territory. I forget the term the Watchtower uses on that, but it was territory that normally wasn't preached. So that's what I'm wondering. So I'm wondering some of the big wigs from Watchtower. I mean, did they ever make their way down that way? Did you ever see many?
I've never met anybody from the headquarters or Bertha, not a soul. You talk about Pikeville. The congregation in Pike County. Pike County is a big county. It's a big coal mining county. But Pikeville congregation, that's where the people from the Williamson congregation, when they sold it about 6 years ago, they are now in Pikeville. So your daughters that came here to Pike County, that's where they would have went to, the Pikeville, Kentucky congregation. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Well, thank you, Kurt, for coming on. Would someone else like to say hello to Kurt?
Thank you, Rick and Anne-Marie.
Kurt's on with us now. If you want to say hello to Kurt. We got only about 2 minutes left. All
Anybody?
Right.
2 minutes. Go ahead. Anybody want to say hello or have a question for Kurt?
I think I might put everybody to sleep. All the details.
No. Kurt, you know what? Rick and I both thank you. We all thank you. I really, you're adorable. It was hard to follow you, but it's because you have so much history and experience in Watchtower. And just knowing that, you know, the Lord helped you to break away from that organization, and that you saw things that made you think, and you actually chose to use the brain God gave you. I want to thank everyone for coming in, and I hope we all say thank you to Kurt. We do need to go to JW World News. Kurt, I want to say thank you, my brother. We love you. We hope to hear you on the show. Continuing shows, we need to go because we're out of time to go to JW World News. Rick?
Well, thank you, Emery. Thank you.
We love you too, and thank you, Rick. Okay.
Well, appreciate it, Kurt. Thank you for taking a couple of Sundays out of your life and being on the 6 screens with us. We really appreciate it. Well, anyways, we are going.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn on YouTube now, and thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So anyways, we got JW World News Sunday edition coming up. So you want to stay with us. We'll be talking more about that mystery box. Wow, that was some big story going on. But anyways, why don't you stay in here with us, and we'll be glad to bring you right up to speed on what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. So we're going to end this broadcast. I'm going to skip over to our broadcast here and in JW World News. So let's do that. Let's go live right now. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome into another Sunday edition of JW World News. Of course, that's the news the Watchtower doesn't want us talking about, but we talk about it every Saturday night and every other Sunday right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork. Well, my name is Rick Farron, and I'm glad you can be with us today. I hope you're having a good Sunday afternoon wherever you are. Isn't it nice to have a Sunday without having to rush off to the meeting or go out in service? You know, you can really start living your life, right? And boy, that's the first thing I noticed when I got out of the Jehovah's Witness organization. We could have a life. We could do things that you couldn't do as a witness. Geez, you get up, you run off to the meeting in the morning, and then, you know, they would want you to stay if you had a position in the congregation. They'd want you to stay and go out in service with the brothers and sisters. So, you know, you'd stay and you'd go out in service. And, geez, by the time you get home, 2:30, 3 in the afternoon, you're dead tired. You're dead tired. And you can't really do much around the house. You can't really do much of anything but just sit on the couch or go to bed and take a nap. You're so tired. But that's why I'm glad. I'm glad I'm out of that organization. And if you're listening in, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You share the same experience, I'm sure. Well, anyways, I wanted to come on and talk about the conventions. Oh, yes, the conventions. They're taking place this weekend. In fact, they started 2 weekends ago. So these are the regional conventions Jehovah's Witnesses are holding, and they're getting good press. Oh, yes, the communities love to have the Jehovah's Witnesses come into town. They spend money. I mean, not all of them, but, you know, they stay at hotels. They put gas in their car. They go out to restaurants. They visit the liquor stores. They, they spend money when they come into these convention arena cities. And the cities love the witnesses. They're not going to say anything bad about them. And many of them know that they're a little rough around the edges, but, you know, they do bring the money in. So, but we're getting reports that are coming in from these conventions. And, of course, they just got kicked off, like I say, a couple of weekends ago. But they got a really big one going on right now. In fact, the largest one, I believe, in the country is taking place this weekend, started this weekend. It's out in Long Beach, California. It's at the Long Beach Arena. And, there's a big write-up here in the paper. I got it right here in front of me. And it's talking about how the witnesses are coming into town. And this is the first year. Now, they haven't had any in-person conventions since, 3 years they haven't had any. 2019 was their last one. And then, of course, COVID hit. So it's been 3 years where they haven't met in person. They've been meeting on Zoom. So the witnesses are now snazzying themselves up and ready to go to the convention. So they're making a big deal out of it. I mean, we know that these conventions of Jehovah's Witnesses are nothing more than a big fundraiser. The Watchtower makes a lot of money out of that. I'm just going to mute a person here. We got to keep our phones muted. All right. So, anyways, it's a big fundraiser, and people bring and put the money in the box, and the Jehovah's Witness organization Watchtower takes out of there thousands and thousands of dollars. There's going to be 6,000 conventions held worldwide this year in 2023. The theme for the assembly, convention, I should say, is exercise patience. Exercise patience. So that's the theme, and I guess you would have to exercise patience if you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You've been hanging on, and Armageddon's right around the corner. So a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses are probably losing patience. So it's probably a good theme. Yeah, there's not too much more I can tell you about that convention, but just to give you an idea, I got online. I wanted to see how many people the convention would actually be able to seat. So they can seat a total of 13,500. So I'm going to be looking for pictures coming in here. They send pictures to me of these conventions, and I'm very interested to see how full that arena is. Now, the strangest thing in this Long Beach arena in California, they're going to hold 12 conventions there this summer, and they're expecting 80,000 people. So I'm really wondering what's up with that. You could have a lot less than 12. So I don't know. I think they're very afraid to see. They can use this as an excuse. Well, we split it up. We have 12 conventions here, so that's why some of the seats are empty. We split it. We're going 12 weeks, whereas before they'd have it like maybe 2 weekends in a row that have a convention, 3 sometimes, but I don't think I've ever heard of 12 weeks in a row. I think the witnesses are really paranoid. I think they're wondering, are the witnesses even going to show up? I mean, it's a roll of the dice. That's what I'm thinking. And they're concerned that maybe those seats won't get filled, but we can only tell, when the numbers start coming in. So we'll keep you right up to date. But, I did get, there was also last weekend, there was a convention in Billings, Montana. And a good friend of mine, she sent me some pictures of the parking lot of the convention up there in Montana. And it's amazing, the parking. I want to show you some pictures. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, you'll see the pictures. Let me just get in here and show them to you. So what you've got here is you've got a convention. The parking lot was usually full, according to the information I got coming in here to 6 screens. But let's take a look at the parking lot. First of all, well, there it is. They took it out the front windshield of the car. You can see it. And you can see there's cars there. And I guess that's the convention center behind those cars, that building you see. But, there's not a whole lot of cars there. But according to the information coming in here to the 6 screens, the parking lot would normally for conventions be full. I'm going to show you another section of the parking lot. There's another section. Look at that. There's not any cars there at all. So it doesn't look good. I think the Jehovah's Witness organization, they're going to have to exercise a little patience, because I don't think they're going to be getting the people coming to the conventions like they used to get. So only time will tell. But I wanted to bring you that information anyways. And I think it's so nice. I really do. I feel so good seeing that there's empty seats, empty parking lots. And I know that makes you guys feel good too. And, it's not like gloating and, I'm so glad these guys are tanking. In a way, I suppose you could call it gloating. But I don't think it's really true gloating. I think it has to do more with vindication. I think that as us ex-witnesses see the Watchtower collapsing, I think we feel vindicated. I think that all of the torture the Jehovah's Witness organization put us through. Many who have been disfellowshipped, many have died refusing blood, many have died and committed suicide. I'm going to call it torture. So I think we feel vindicated when we see this corrupt, evil organization tanking. I don't think it's really gloating. Gloating is one thing, but I guess vindication would be another. But that's how I feel about it, and I hope you do too. I'm happy. I don't know what it is. Lately, I just got this like adrenaline rush, and I just feel so good. I think that's part of it. I really do. I think it's really emotionally connecting with my whole body that this organization is tanking, and I feel good about it. I really, really do. So let's just hope it continues to tank. But many times here in the six screens, well, what we focus on, and I mentioned it numerous times in the last few years, really, on how the young ones, the Gen Zers, the millennials, and how they're leaving the organization. And so I really, really never put too much thought in, Jehovah's Witnesses 65 plus. Well, I'm 65 plus, I'm 74. And, when I do the analytics for the six screens, I have a platform called Tube Buddy, and it gives me all the analytics that I would ever want, where people call in from, if our audience is more women than men, how old our audience is. And we have a pretty old audience. I have to tell you that. As a matter of fact, our average audience is from 40 up. Yeah, it goes up from there. So I find that fascinating. But we have young ones listening too. But we do have an older group of people that listen in. And I'm glad for that. And I was thinking that maybe there's not a lot of older ones waking up. But I got news for you. I was on that Reddit forum where ex-Jehovah's Witnesses write. And I couldn't believe the amount of older people who were saying, no, I'm out. I'm getting out. I just got out. I just found about this. I found out about that. I left. So there's a whole lot. So, I want to just bring that to everyone's attention. Yeah, the older generations, they have been affected so much by the Watchtower. Many are going to have a very, very difficult time getting out because think about it. Think about it. A lot of these older Jehovah's Witnesses who really were faithful and loyal, they threw their whole life away being involved with the Watchtower. They threw away a career, perhaps even threw away having a family. Armageddon's coming. I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to have kids. And the organization stole their life. And, when we were younger and just get involved with the Watchtower, and we gave them our resources, our time, our effort, knocking on doors all over the place, we put a lot into it. And there was nowhere really to find out about other apostles, find out about people who left. We never had any connection with that. But now these younger ones, the Gen Zers, the millennials, that they can get right online and they can see on the internet and see the apostates and connect with them as we do on this program. So that's the difference. I know when I got out, and many of the people got out when I got out in 2005, so it's not that long ago. But if you got out back in the 90s, and I can remember I had a friend that got out in 92, I believe it was, and he thought when he was disfellowshipped, he thought he was all alone because there was no way to connect with other people. There was no way, and he just felt so bad about that. But today, when people are disfellowshipped or they leave the organization, boy, they can just meet up with people all over the place. So that age group, the 65 plus, they have been slaves all their life for the Watchtower. Think about it. All their life. Now, many are, as I say, waking up. And you know what's waking them up? I'm going to tell you what really worked is that pandemic. Good old COVID. That was the cult buster right there. I'll tell you. COVID came in, and of course, they started meeting on Zoom, weren't going to meetings in person. And then that created some monumental issues for the Watchtower. Many were able to now look things up online. They had the time to do it. They weren't running off to meetings all the time. So it really worked. That pandemic worked in getting a lot of people out of the Watchtower, including young ones. And then the young ones too. This is also another thing that's happening. The younger ones are helping the older ones. Some of these young children or younger children are finding out. If anyone in the Watchtower is like in the 20s, 30s, late teens, 40s even, they're seeing this. These people basically grew up with internet. They grew up with computers. And so they're seeing this. So it's happening. Many, many people, not just young ones, but older ones too, are getting out. And what's causing people to leave? That's the question I've been putting out, and I've been getting some answers. So, what is really some of the main causes of people getting out of the organization? Well, 607 is one of them. Destruction of Jerusalem. Many witnesses see that that's a phony baloney date. Watchtower has it wrong. Also, people are getting out because they're seeing how the Watchtower is handling child sex abuse. That's ticking a lot of people off. And a lot of people are really concerned about the 1914 hoax. They're now calling it a hoax. You don't see much written about 1914 anymore. They're hoping people don't even think about it. So, you see these things happening. So I do believe we have Chewy. You want to come on, Chewy, say something?
Yeah, you talked about that elderly generation. I just pulled up a deal on my Facebook Messenger that was put on. Now, they had their convention in Oklahoma City last weekend. And I looked at some of the photos, and the whole bottom section where the elderly people were at is about half of it was filled up, and they were just they didn't fill it up. But anyway, this lady, she got on here. I've known her for years. She's probably in her 60s, maybe 70s now. She's been around here for years. This is the comment that she put on her Facebook Messenger or Facebook, and there was 2 or 3 older people that said amen. One of them said amen to it. He says, you cannot treat people like garbage and worship God at the same time.
Well, I like that. It's true.
Yeah. And she got comments on it. She got likes on it from people that are in. So let's add that to the story.
Well, good. That's good. Now we will add that to the story. Very good. Thank you, Chewy. Yeah. And by the way, too, Chewy, thank you for sending me all the stuff you do because it helps me. It really, really does. I appreciate it. I want you to know that. The other thing here, you say, well, what's getting people out? Why are older ones leaving, even younger ones? Well, I'm going to tell you another thing. I've been getting information coming into the 6 screens that I really find fascinating. There's a lot of people leaving the organization today because of nepotism, favoritism among elders' sons and family members. You all know about that, right? You've seen how, young brothers were overlooked because, the eldest son got picked instead of the other brother that wasn't having an elder for a father, all of this stuff. But in one congregation, one person sent me some information here I found very informative. He was concerned because there was a brother, in fact, he was an elder's son, and he was reproved in one congregation for gross porneia. Now we know what porneia is, right? Sexual innuendo. So anyways, what he was doing is he was sexting raunchy pictures to young girls in the congregation, I guess congregations around his area. So they publicly reproved him once for that. Didn't disfellowship him. They publicly reproved him. And then a shot where within 6 months of being publicly reproved, he did it again. And this really got this older couple thinking that, do we really want to be part of this? It's just not, they're not treating it properly. And, they never disfellowshipped him, but yet they disfellowship one for perhaps drinking a little bit one night or perhaps smoking a cigarette. But this guy's sending raunchy sex pictures and they never disfellowshipped him. Come on 906 up there in the Northern Peninsula. Come on in, Ken. I thought he was going to come in. I guess he's not. Yep. He's unmuted, but that's okay. Did you want to say something, Ken? All right. I guess not. I see he's. Yeah, hello? Yes, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I've been listening to the program with interest, and I'm really happy with all the callers we got last night. I didn't happen to get a name, but I was not able to get in there, but yeah, it makes you wonder why they're losing so many members, because they're making these draconian rules and regulations. and they keep on making more and more of them and everything like that, and they keep on trying to say that it's God's law pursuant to what God wants, and here it's man-made rules, man-made regulations, right and left, and then hypocrisy that goes along with it, and the double standards. The standards, like you just mentioned here, the standard is going to be different for the elder's son than it's going to be for the common ordinary person down there, and so forth. So, based on the type of organization that the JWs are, I'm happy to hear that they're on the downfall and hope they just continue that way. With their conventions and everything like that, I don't see them picking up like they used to years ago. Like back in the 60s and 70s and that, they actually picked up members. We know that now. But this day and age, I don't think they're going to ever be the same again. And I think it's going to be not a matter of if, it's just going to be when are they going to collapse.
Well, I like the way you sound, because that's exactly right. These guys are on life support right now. They are. They're not going to make it. And I'm not looking through rose-colored glasses. Hey, listen, when you got countries and states now looking into the practices of the Jehovah's Witnesses, they're in monumental doo-doo right now. Well, thank you, Ken. Thanks for coming on. So there's a lot of things, a lot of things that are keeping, the Watchtower. Well, and a lot of things keeping them on a downslope. They're going down quick. And one of the things, too, that people wrote in, because I was wondering, well, what are some of the things that got you out? And I was surprised to see Wikipedia on the list. Wikipedia. Have you looked at Wikipedia on Jehovah's Witnesses? There's a ton of information. Of course, the witnesses would look at it and say, well, that's Wikipedia. It's not really as true as a real encyclopedia. But, look, I check Wikipedia out a lot, and they're pretty much on the ball in there. So Wikipedia is getting a lot of people out, and the overlapping generation. Oh my goodness, the gift that just keeps on giving, the overlapping generation. And of course, the Australian Royal Commission. Oh, all the sex perverted people in Australia, and the Watchtower covered up. I'll tell you what.
Of course, the Australian Royal Commission.
Yeah.
Oh, all this.
All right. I guess this is Gilbert, I think. Go ahead, Gilbert. What do you want to say? Oh, okay. I guess he doesn't want to say anything. I think let me check my phone system here. 1 second, folks. Just let me check it to make sure that we've got the muting and all of that is working. 5-1. All right. For some reason, okay. I see the muting is not working right, but that's okay. If anyone wants to speak up, just hit *6, I guess, as usual. But anyways, let's.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
It's Eric. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
You struck a subject with me that struck up a nerve, was the Good Old Boys Club from the elders. And yeah, like I've told your audience, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but like I got this fellowship for smoking pot. Well, this guy that's around my age, and he's not necessarily a buddy of mine, but he was a good friend of a good friend of mine. So I kind of knew him, and I knew his dad. I actually went with his dad to Pioneer School, where Anthony Morris was our instructor in Marlborough, Massachusetts. And the Good Old Boys Club, I say that because I got this fellowship for smoking weed, and Jared Rostron, this guy, he his dad is the presiding overseer, or what do they call it now?
Kobe.
Whatever, don't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So he goes to concerts and smokes weed, and he smokes tobacco here and there over drinks for sure. In fact, he was at a party at my uncle's house, and he had passed out on the lawn, and then they had went and got him and brought him inside because it didn't look good. The wife was away and the wives were away. Nobody was around. Well, my aunt came home and said, "Why is Jared passed out on the floor?" And go, no, we took care of it, but he had woken up and passed out again. But the point I'm making about it is this guy did all kinds of things, and all I did was smoke a little pot too. and he got the free pass. His dad it was get out of jail free. Whatever happened to Jared, Ken, his dad, he squashed it. And it's just the corruption and the good old boys club. It's like my grandfather was an elder. My dad was an elder for a short period of time, but short enough, but long enough to disfellowship somebody when his house was in such disarray. But I thought I would just add that to you. I don't want to steal your show, Rick. Thank you.
Well, no, that's good. We like to hear from you, Eric. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And obviously, so, the old boys club, elders club, the elders' friends and relatives and sons especially got special positions. Did Gilbert want to come in?
Hey, Rick, I got a question for you about you saying that they're getting ready to go down the watchtower. Think about it. You and I were in the executive offices of the governing body, and we're talking about this. If it were me, Rick, I would try to do a diversion. Like, I would try to split the organization into like 2 or 3 different other religions, because it already happened with Russell and Rutherford. It was a separation, and then that way you would be absolved of all of the legal issues. So, if that was me in charge and I was evil, a evil governing body member, that's what I would want to do. I would want to break the Jehovah's Witness religion into sections and keep the money, and then let all the lawyers go after a dead organization that's broke because you diverted. That's just what I would do, because you're right. The writing is on the wall. So that's what I would do. I would divide the corporation into 2 or 3 different entities and hide the money.
Yeah, well, I don't know if there's anyone smart enough. I mean, you got a good business head on your shoulders, Gilbert, but I don't think there's anyone smart enough at the Watchtower to put that together, to be honest with you. But that's what you would do, yes.
That's what I would do.
That's why you're going to be a governing. That's why you're going to be a governing body member, really. Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Dick.
I think your brother's right on target. I think they already have a plan for hiding the money, and I also think they have a plan for, like the Nazis, ending up in Argentina or something like that, because they know that the FBI or some organization is going to come after them. They've been hiding corruption for so long, and as Abraham Lincoln said, we can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time. Thanks, Rick.
Well, you're right with that, Dick. And, I'll tell you another thing, too. This is a normal thing that happens in the business world. Well, what you do is when you see a business going down and it's tanking, while there's still some cash left in the coffers, you're going to get that out. You see your business going. So this very well could be what's going on. Maybe these guys at Watchtower are onto this. But you'd want to, if you're going down, get as much cash out. Any good accountant would tell you that. Get the money and run because it's going down. So that's probably what is going on. And I know one thing. This is really, the Watchtower is undergoing some severe turbulence right now, more than ever. I mean, in the 17 years of doing the program, I've never witnessed this much contempt from an organization. It's happening. Now you say to yourself, well, wait a minute. Why are there more younger ones getting out than older ones? Well, we kind of gave you an analogy last night. I want to give it to you again because it's worth repeating. There's 2 possibilities why older ones have a more difficult time getting out of the organization than younger ones. I'm going to give you an idea here why this happens. It's very, very difficult for the older ones to leave because there's an accounting term, and it's called sunk cost fallacy. Yeah, SUNK, cost fallacy. Now, what this is the more you put into something, the harder it is to acknowledge you have been wrong. Think about that. So the more you put into something, it's really, it's hard for you to acknowledge that you've been wrong. And that's especially the case with many Jehovah's Witnesses who are elderly, including myself. I'm an older man, including myself. So, a lot of us gave up education. We gave up a career. We gave up getting married. Not me, but some did. Many didn't have children, and not having any retirement fund either. So they gave an awful lot to the Watchtower. And to admit that they were wrong in being a part of this organization at this age, after being in for 50, 60, 70 years, some of these people, it would be too crushing. It would be too hard for their psyche to deal with this. It would be too much. So what happens is a tendency when things get to this point, as it is for many old loyal witnesses, what they have a tendency to do, it's a phenomena. What happens is some of these older witnesses, they begin to double down on their commitment. In other words, it's do or die. It's kind of like a Hail Mary there in a football team. They're just going to do everything they possibly can. And so it's a phenomena and this is a true thing. This happens in the secular world. It happens in especially end time religious worlds, where a person's in so long, they begin to really now double down and believe more of what they're being taught than ever. It would be the same thing. I'll use another illustration. I'll use an illustration of a man that buys lotto tickets. He buys lotto tickets every day. He hardly ever wins anything. A couple of bucks here, a couple of bucks there. So he's been doing this for 50 years. He says, geez, if I stop now, I'm not going to win. I'll start buying double the tickets and see if I can win. So that's what happens. And that's what's happened to a lot of witnesses. They're becoming doubly connected, more connected to the Watchtower organization. And it's very hard. You guys are listening. You know what I'm talking about. It's very hard to say to yourself, I was fooled by a false belief system. Do you think about that? I do. Sometimes I'll walk around the house here and I'll even think, how was it I was fooled? These guys were very good. These guys had to be very good. They fooled me. And they fooled so many people. And people, it's very hard to say that. But I'm willing to say it. I'm willing to say it, that I was fooled by a false belief system. Never had a true belief. I have it now. But I never had it when I was in the Watchtower. I could never figure the whole thing out. Okay, it looks like we have, I tell you what, we got a Sunday appearance here. It looks like the King of Dots. Yes. You're on with us.
You tempted me. You tempted me, Rick.
Did I?
The tempter is the devil. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not calling to call you the devil. But the fact is, I had to admit to my 5 years ago, to my 85-year-old Catholic parents who are still alive now, that I made a 30-year mistake. And here is the problem. The longer you stay in that organization, the less likely you are to admit you made a mistake, because it's so embarrassing. Personally, I don't care. I've suffered many embarrassments in my life, and telling other people that will save them from making a 30-year mistake. That's personally how I feel about it. And as far as Gilbert, he is so great. I'm going to just shout his praises. And his brother, they had a live stream yesterday. I missed it. But they're such an incredible force for good. They're Hispanic, by the way. And we've got an influx of Hispanics into this country. And a lot of them are Jehovah's Witnesses, no doubt. Nothing's going to keep them from crossing the border also with everybody else. So Gilbert and his brother need to do their thing and do it now.
I agree. Well, it's a good opinion. I agree with you 100%. They're excellent. They do. Jesse is excellent. They're both really, really good. And I hope they're listening in.
Jesse's my favorite apostate.
Yeah. Well, they know.
I've been listening to Nixon Presley for years.
Yeah.
And watching his comments. He's absolutely astute on all avenues of what's going on with Watchtower and the world. These people are not just, what would I say, theocratically enhanced, but they also know what's going on politically. And in reality, politics and theocracy are going hand in hand right now, as we see with the Watchtower organization, constantly having to play the political games all over the world. So we need more of this input. And I implore them, please do more. You're not doing enough. I'm not going to pay you to do more. Trust me on that, okay? But I implore you, do more for the good of all the individuals out there who are being pretty much tricked out of their whole life.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Well, thank you for the encouragement for them guys. I
Will you do it? Will you do a loyalty oath to them?
I've thought about it before. Yes.
No, you haven't. Give me a break. There were some apostate organizations that demanded loyalty oaths. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No.
So I was just kidding. If they're listening, I just want them to know that I remember they demanded loyalty oaths, whatever the hell that means. So, Rick, I'm glad to hear you would give a loyalty oath. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
I will catch you later.
Well, thank you. Always appreciate you coming on. Always love to hear from the King of Dots. Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate myself coming on. I appreciate myself coming on, too. Thank you.
All righty, there you go. Well, that's the King of Dots, and always glad to hear from him. And he comes on a lot on Saturday night as well. Well, you're on JAW World News Sunday edition. I'm going to move down now to the secret box. Oh, we talked about that last night. Now, let me just tell you what's going on. I'm not going to even get into reading the letter. I read it last night, but I'll tell you what the letter's all about. Now, reminders in the congregation, they used to read your elders' letters. Then the elders would, read it to the congregation. Well, we'll take a look at what's going on. This is one of the craziest elder letters I ever got. And I want to thank Atlantis. He sends me these letters, and he's like an insider with the Watchtower. But this is something that really is crazy to me. In the context of the letter, and they're going to read it to the congregation, what the congregation is going to do, what the Watchtower Society is doing this week, they're starting to mail boxes to every congregation. I know at least in this country, I believe it's in the world, but this country maybe only, I'm not sure. So they're sending boxes to congregations, every congregation, and they're not to open the box. It's a mystery box. It's a confidential box, a secret box, call it whatever you want, but they're not supposed to open the box. The liturgy servant and the elders and the officials of the local congregation are to just put the box aside. Do not open it until November 6th. November 6th. So, this really is getting a buzz, and I find it very fascinating that the Watchtower is even doing this. In a way, it's almost like naming a date that something big is going to happen without really getting themselves in hot water. I mean, they got in trouble because of 1975. They got in trouble because of other dates, 1925. So maybe they want to get out of that game, but they still want to give the impetus. So they want to give this way of, something eminent is happening on November 6th. I'll tell you what, thinking about it now and people giving me information here at the 6 screens, a lot of witnesses are getting panic stricken. They're really thinking, what's in the box? Now, maybe a loyal, faithful Jehovah's Witness is not going to be panic stricken, but I'll tell you who's being panic stricken is witnesses that are living a double life. Now, just imagine you got this double life going on and you have an affair or something with a couple of sisters in the Kingdom Hall and nobody knows about it. But all of a sudden, they tell you there's a secret box, a mystery box that's going to be opened. Now, the first thing that starts running through your head is, man, this must be instructions from Jehovah. I better clean my act up. So this is what's happening. So many witnesses are getting really panic-stricken over the whole thing. But, I got thinking, and you know how crazy the Watchtowers have been in the last few years, and I've counted 4 editions since 2013 where the Watchtower has come out and said that you're going to be given orders from the governing body that don't sound good. They're not good orders. They're foolish. They sound stupid. They don't sound they don't sound great from a human standpoint, but you must follow them regardless. Remember that? We've talked about that many times here on the sixth screen. So you got the secret boxes coming to the congregation. I'm thinking about things are getting bad in the Watchtower world. I'm thinking in those boxes. I was thinking yesterday when I started getting all you guys calling in, maybe it's their Kool-Aid shipment. But it's not. But I just thought that was a little funny. But many people are speculating what's in the box. People are thinking, well, maybe it's a new Revelation final climax book. Some are saying that it's a new Bible, for example. So it's very bizarre. And frankly, it is frightening for many Jehovah's Witnesses. So I got that information coming in here yesterday that really rocked my boat, where these people were commenting about some of the things they thought was in the box that they just said. But I'm thinking this is nothing but a lame attempt to build excitement. Yeah, a lame attempt to build excitement. It's really a lackluster campaign of some type. It's very much like they did with 1975, as I said. But gee, I'll tell you what, Watchtower's always been good at doing this. They drum up fear and anxiety for something that's urgent, something that's imminent, that may be coming. Well, didn't they do that? Didn't they do that with 1975? Yes, they did. They built up this excitement, so to speak, that something's coming and it's the end of 6,000 years. And people really took it to the bank and cashed it. Jay, did you want to say something? Jay Hess. Maybe not. I thought he.
No, not now.
Good.
Okay, no, okay. I saw him on, and somehow I think that I get a light showing that people are unmuting themselves, but I'm not sure why that's happening. Yes, go ahead, Dick.
That's happened before in history. When I was a Catholic going to parochial school, and that situation with the lady of Fatima, a certain letter was to be opened by the Pope, and everyone was anxious to find out what that was going to be, the end of the world or whatever. And the Pope read it, and he said it was so traumatic that he was afraid if he told the people that